Today's show is sponsored by Fender Guitars, makers of the JA90 Jim Adkins signature Telecaster. What do you know? That's the same guitar I play. I don't have any sort of like witty copy to say. I don't have any real, it's a Telecaster. You can dress it up or down, take it to the beach. Fender Guitars. They have something you'll like, probably. I'm making up slogans as I go here. Fender Guitars. Thanks, Fender. Today I'm talking to hometown hero, Nate Ruess. I met Nate when he was in the format. I guess technically he's still in the format. A local musician that's a friend of mine who just happens to be like on the Grammys with Pink sometimes, Probably countless other things behind the scenes. Nate is another lifer in music. He says he's trying to retire and get away, but I don't buy it. You can't quit, Nate. Don't give up now. Keep rocking. My conversation with Nate happened on June 27th of 2020. All right. Let's admit Nate. Hey, what's up?
Hello.
How's it going?
What's up?
Man.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Should I start my video now?
Yeah. Might as well. Start the cocktail, start the video.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, there's not usually airplanes flying overhead. This is an outlier in the audio of this.
Hey man, that's okay. I'm at our studio and like airplanes going overhead is sort of part of our sound here.
Okay, cool. So then I'm just blending in.
Yeah.
Doing my part.
Yeah. How you doing, dude?
I'm okay. It's just, strange freaking world. How is Arizona's a little crazy, right?
Arizona's a little crazy.
How big is your social circle as far as this stuff is concerned?
We've met up with the people in the band. So I guess Zach and Tom and Robin are kind of like the biggest extension of my social circle now.
We moved to Santa Barbara a month before the COVID stuff happened. So we don't really know anybody here anyways.
Yeah, that's cool. You're just...
Yeah, so it's been on one hand it's been amazing, and then the other hand, any sort of child emergencies we've had, kids busting their heads open or crazy fevers,
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, I guess I'm getting familiar with the hospitals here.
Yeah.
But calling one friend to ask what the if in the event of this happening, what do you do here in Santa Barbara? So it's we're learning, we're being inundated in a very strange way, that's for sure.
Why'd you pick Santa Barbara besides it just rules? You're a big fan of Psych?
What's Psych?
It's a detective show and it's sort of funny and it's kind of...
Oh, does that happen in Santa Barbara?
Yeah. But I mean they film it in Vancouver, but it's supposed to be in Santa Barbara. It's kind of, I don't know. I'm a fan, so...
Yeah, no, Santa Barbara's great because it is just close enough to Los Angeles. If my wife's sister lives there, we've got family there, or if I have to work, it's just close enough, but not in it, because I don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah, being in it,
it's perfect.
It's kind of so you're sort of in Phoenix, in a way.
Well, and that's another reason why I love it too is it weirdly reminds me of Phoenix.
Santa Barbara? Yeah, when I feel the cold air coming off of the ocean, I just think, oh man, Phoenix. This is just
No.
This is just July at, South Mountain.
Totally. No, but I mean I'm up in the mountains. I'm seeing cacti for the first time since I left Phoenix, so but it also just has a weird it feels Phoenix is for being a big city. You know, like it has those places, at least the places that you're familiar with, that kind of feel like a small town. Maybe how Tempe used to be, but that's kind of how this feels as opposed to LA. It feels more like Phoenix than LA. That's for sure.
I could see that about Santa Barbara compared to LA.
Yeah, and I'm more adaptable, I think, to that than LA.
Where have all you been like living since you got out of Phoenix? Were you in New York for a while? Or were you in?
I was in New York for 10 years, and then some of that time I was in LA, and now we are just in Santa Barbara.
It's funny how we travel around, and especially when like Bleed American was kind of taking off, and people were like kind of getting to know who we were for the first time. They'd be asking us, "You guys live in Arizona?" Like, okay, so when are you moving to LA? Like, right. It's just like a given. Like, I'm like, what am I going to do in LA?
It's interesting. Like now, since I've settled down and have had kids, I would move to Arizona kind of I love Arizona. I love it. But my wife has more family around LA. And so, I'm going to like respect that. And I like that Santa Barbara has a little more of a small town vibe.
It's just a different kind of thing, and your personality is going to like thrive in one thing or another, or maybe one thing for a little bit, but not for very long. You can get burned out on that thing, on that good thing. You can get definitely burned out on it.
Well, you like definitely fall back to it. I like anytime I go back to Phoenix, all my old friends are there, and it just feels more right. It's so weird that you gravitate towards you end up circling back around towards those things, like obviously in the middle of when I started the fun stuff and then it really took off, it's Phoenix seemed like such a crazy place to be, but as like life has like circled back, it's like, yeah, that's like, what are the things that are most important? And like, you find that your friends that you grew up with, you just have so much more in common with them. It's weird.
There is something valuable about people who knew you when you were younger. Like when you share, if you've shared formidable experiences with people, it's like, that's hard to get as you get older. And and music people too. Music people that we met when we were first touring, and then like the first couple years of the group, like that's like lifelong friendships there.
Well, there are frames of reference. Have you noticed that? Like I can even with you, I can reference 40 different things that have meant more to me growing up and shaping who I am than like if my closest friend here. We can talk about a few things, but they are not the things that like shaped who I am. So it's totally different. We could talk about Filiberto's, or even something as small as Filiberto's. It means like so much.
I know what you mean.
And like that's why anytime I go back to Phoenix, if I see Sam, any of the people that I grew up with, I don't know. There's just something where you just feel like you're at home much more.
Right. I've known our drummer Zach since his mother was our preschool teacher. I don't know if you knew that. It's like I've known him for like him for like 40 years. And he's still like one of the people I hang out with the most. That's extra valuable. And it's just like now there's just sort of this shorthand. I won't even be thinking about it, but then something will happen, and it'll be like da-bum-bum-bum, and like we both do it, and it's not the normal thing that happens in that place, but it just happened, and we were both locked in, and like, oh, that was weird, like you did that thing, hey, you did that thing, you don't get that.
Yeah, and that's. It takes a long time to build that kind of relationship. And with you guys, too, when you listen to the Jimmy Eat World drums, which are one of the most appealing parts of your guys' music, are the singing's all right,
but the drums.
It's fine. I mean, the singing's fine. No, but like, you're only as good as your drummer. And I think Zach has always done an amazing job of like letting you shine and always being there so that someone like me who can't play drums is like always playing the air fills with every single Jimmy Eat World song. Like you put on, I mean, if you put on Clarity, I could air drum the whole freaking album. I mean, and that's it. But that's like a testament. That was like a Dave Grohl thing I'd read once about, like, you know, he wanted to make some, like, the fills feel almost like they're their own, like, special hook.
Right.
And like that's something that you guys do, but I'm not so sure that like you kind of need each other in order to do that.
We do spend a lot of time refining like what kind of transitions are going to happen, and, you know, make sure that the choices are intentional instead of like just like that too.
Totally. No, definitely. And I think that was one of the things when we had made that big fun album, is like I was like, I don't want to use a live drummer. I want to use I want to get this producer Jeff and get an MPC and basically just have those, like, the beats were just so simple that and Jeff didn't really want to as great as he is at drum programming, he hates it more than anything. The same thing, like, I feel the same way with lyrics. Like I feel like sometimes I can write good lyrics, but I despise doing it.
Oh God.
And so it just like takes so much out of me. I'll spend like 3 days in bed just to write like one line, and most of the time I'm not even thinking. I'm just like being like, oh, I have to write lyrics. But that's how Jeff would always feel about programming drums. And so when we made that album, I think that was like, it was so helpful that we just had the, like, pretty simplistic programmed MPC drums, and it like let the melodies kind of shine a lot more.
Isn't that really the secret? It's like, give yourself a break. It doesn't have to
give yourself yeah.
It doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to. You're not making Apocalypse Now. It can just be a TikTok thing. You know, it's like, it's okay.
Well,
it's let it be simple. Yeah. Let it be simple and see what, just baby steps, you know, like let it just 2/4, you know, maybe like
totally, absolutely,
you know, really be judicious about where you put crash cymbals and see what happens, you know, like give everything else room.
Yeah, well, you got to be judicious about where you put the ride too, and I think that's harkening back to like Clarity, and what you guys have always done well, Zach has always done well, is the ride cymbal is it's never like never gets like jazzy with the ride. It never starts to get a little like disjointed. I mean, back in the old emo days when it was, you know, when you guys would do like stuff like that,
yeah,
like that was different. But I feel like that was kind of what opened up your guys' songwriting. Like was like kind of the drums fell back. You didn't get like the and like if you got a ride, it would just, you know, sound like as opposed to like, you know, you didn't get any of the like loose hands type of stuff.
Right.
And I think that goes so far in making the melody, at least in a pop song, and in most cases, it lets the melody kind of just like shine out.
Do you find yourself torn sometimes between like how you came up and then what might be exciting now? I mean,
yeah, kind of. But I have to remind myself that that most of the things that I'm having any success with, like commercially, are a byproduct of how I came up. So I can't sit there first of all, I don't write very much anymore at all. I tried to retire, but I don't think I can officially retire yet. I definitely retired from doing my own music. And so with my own music, I kind of just like say, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to write the best thing I'm going to write whatever I'm feeling. That's always just been the case with any album I've ever made. Has always been like, okay, well, what am I feeling? Everything else takes a back seat.
Right.
As far as songwriting. And then, you know, when we made that big fun album, I think that was a byproduct of just like right place, right time. I don't think the songs were necessarily any better, but I think we found the right producer. When I go into a session, if I'm going to try and write like a pop song for an artist, you know, it's weird. A lot of times I'm trying to think about like how I can write that big, huge hook. And I think it's more beneficial when I'm just being myself. Like that's what people want to hear.
Right.
They don't want to hear someone who knows who necessarily like knows what they're doing. If like, I think a good example would be the Pink song. So I sit in the studio. I've got Jeff, who's been my like longtime co-writer for like basically any hit song that I've had, or for the most part, like most of the hit songs that I've written, Jeff has been a co-writer or a producer. And Pink. And so we're all sitting in the studio, and Jeff just like plays like 2 chords. And right from there, I just start singing like the whole entire song. And I think Alicia was sitting there on the floor writing, kind of like listening to the lyrics that I was just like kind of singing in tongue, and picking out like certain words and trying to like kind of make sense and try and make a story out of it. But I wasn't singing at that moment thinking like, okay, how can I write some big, huge pop ballad? Yeah. I was just being the person that I was, and the person that I was grew up listening to, the Get Up Kids, grew up listening to Jimmy Eat World, grew up listening to like a bunch of like pop punk. So I have to take all of those things into account and like, and give them, major credit for like building a strong melodic foundation for me.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I do hear a lot of no effects in that Pink song.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that they would love to know that. Yeah, it's definitely all over it.
I've tried doing like collaborative stuff, like songwriting things with other people, like everyone's in the room. It's sort of crawling out of your skin sort of vibe. Like I love the idea of it. Like
I'm going to pause. It's the fucking dumbest, worst thing that's ever happened. It has no place in the world, and the fact that it churns out hit after hit is like kind of pathetic.
But it's like you were describing like your method there of what happened. And that's really kind of like not dissimilar from how I work on my own. It's like here's a rough thing. You're just going to kind of scat out some you're like a really rough phrasing and melody, and maybe there's some actual words in there as you're kind of singing, hearing yourself work it out, and then you sort of try to read the bones in the scat of like what is there.
Yeah, you don't get that usually in a pop session. It's usually just extremely lifeless, and you're saying, oh, what do we want this song to be? Well, it's going to be a love song. We all know. What do you want it to be about? And I think what made that Pink song special, and the reason why it shone so much, is we were all kind of doing our respective things and it was written in 1 second, and it was so by the moment. But most of the time you sit there and you're like, okay, oh, how do I make this melody better? How can I top this melody? How can I top this melody? And then you're like sitting there with other people writing lyrics, which is always just weird. And like, trying to, I always go back to the Some Kind of Monster. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
movie?
when the yeah.
Of course.
The most cringe part when the therapist hands him lyric ideas. Like, oh God.
Yeah, but there's one part where he's like, "What rhymes with mine?" And he's like, "Landmine."
I mean, but you got to do it. But the thing is, like, that's part of it. Like, unless you're moving things forward, you're not gonna get to you have to throw out stuff that sucks.
You have to be cringe for sure, but I'm just like, I can be cringe. I prefer to just like sit and be cringe with myself. I don't want to sit in a room full of people that I don't necessarily know and be cringe. Like I can sit there in my own room and be like, what rhymes with mind? Landmine.
There you go. Yeah.
And be like, no, that's dumb. But I don't want to sit there with someone and then not be able to be like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, that's cool. Let's go with it. Let's work. Let's place that there for now, and then let's move on to the next part. Yeah. I don't enjoy it, and I don't do those type of sessions very much. But occasionally, I think most people, you just hope that you luck into that moment where you're sitting there and you've got Pink in the room, and she knows who she is as a lyricist, and I think that's important. That's extremely important when you know who you are as a lyricist. So she might be hearing me say something like, just give me a reason, and she can internalize that, and it can sound like any other Pink song. And that's when it gets good for sure, is when you have an artist who's equally as confident in their ability, and not just being like, hey, I know you've written some really catchy songs. Like, want to write me one of those catchy songs, and I'll just sit here and.
I don't think it's a matter of confidence. I think, well, maybe it's confidence, but it's like being able to turn off the self-censorship and let yourself suck. Let things that possibly don't work come out so that you can get to the gold. Because when you look anywhere, you're going to find yourself. Having a sense of who you are, I think, is really important. Having a perspective, having a worldview that you know. I mean, part of that can be that you accept that you're always growing, but at least like some kind of anchor on a fundamental emotional level.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. For me, I never took anything to anybody. I never brought the songs to anybody until I'd worked it out in my head. I was never one of those people, you know, people that will play a demo for everybody and be like, what do you think about this? And then you get like 100 different opinions. I wouldn't play a finished song until basically it was coming out the next day, you know, for anybody that I knew. Because I always felt like I had to be like, I the only person whose approval I wanted the most was my own. And I don't think I ever got it. You know, I've only gotten it a handful of times, but at some point you just have to be like, nah, you gotta get it out. And so for me, it was always so long before I felt comfortable sharing a song. And even in bands, like, you know, it would take forever. I'd have to make sure that I knew what every instrument, what all the different parts were, before I felt like comfortable even bringing it to the rest of the band. And like, that way I kind of knew what was going to happen. Cause, I like to just build it all in my head and spend a lot of time with it before anyone hears it.
That's kind of what I do too. Like I'm hesitant to bring material to the rest of the band if I don't have finished lyrics for it, because it's not a song. Mm-hmm. It's not a song. It's a.
That's good.
But I mean, usually
that. Sorry.
Usually we have a deadline.
That's a good way to be, because, yeah, I lyrics would always be the last thing that I would finish. Because I would at least be like, well, this has to be good. The whole entire, even a general vibe of a song, that I felt like I needed a little more of people's like input, you know, once I felt comfortable sharing it. But lyrics I would always do last, and I mean like the bitter end. I would wait to do lyrics, and I would spend every single day. And I think that's one of the reasons why I just don't enjoy doing songs that much anymore, is because I would just sit all day knowing you've got to do this lyric, you've got to do this, like, even if it's like one bar of a song, I would leave it until the very end of recording, like the second to last day. And I would just be freaking out the whole entire time, but I would never like take the initiative to go sit in my room and like finish it.
I think I do a lot of procrastination work to avoid. See, at some point, like whether you're working with somebody else in a collaborative sense, or whether you're on your own, somebody's got to do the heavy lifting. And that heavy lifting is actually putting words down next to the bullet points that correspond to this line, this line, this line, this line, you know. And I will do all kinds of things. I'm noticing this about myself. I will do all kinds of things to write around doing that, you know, thinking that I'm making progress. Like, I got a couple songs I'm sort of working on now, and I can tell that I'm doing that, you know. It's
what, you working on an EQ for like 20 hours?
Well, it's like your idea. No, like writing, like fleshing out theme, fleshing out like what is happening with this idea. You know, it's like you have your basic kind of idea that you're latched onto that feels sort of vague, and you want to see what else is there, what's deeper, what's beyond that, what's specific about it. And so I'll write down, but I won't get too specific about it, because that's the part that's scary. So I'll write around that, like, okay, I'm working on something that's basically about like you know, it's like you're able to choose kind of one sort of path for yourself. at any given moment. And there's a cosmic number of other paths you could take, but you have to, and at some point, like, you got to come to a sense of, you have to come to peace with that, everything that you've missed.
The path.
Because of that.
Okay.
So that's a general kind of thing I'm working on. What is that? Where does that take me? Where am I when I hear like mood wise, when I listen to this song, where am I? Like, what's that look like? What specifically does that look like? Okay. So this looks like, kind of like a casino sort of vibe, like a Bond scene, like in Monaco, you know, like, but some sort of like futuristic casino where it's like you're placing the chips of your life on a thing, and at some point you're going to have to reckon with the fact that this is your choice, and all the other things that you didn't get from this are going to be like, it's kind of a heavy weight to deal with. So that's kind of what I'm working on. So like I'll write all around it. Like, okay, what's the casino like? Who was there? What do people look like? Like, who's talking right now? Who are they talking to?
Is this one song, Jim? Is this one song?
Yeah, it's one song. I've been working on it. I've been working on it for 2 months.
Stop. Is it a 10-minute song?
No, it's like a 3-minute song. So, but the thing is, it's like, you know, it's like 6 syllables in a line. And I'll probably end up having like half a notebook full of material that's about the thing, but then it's going to be a very simple like one syllable, like short word syllable things that end up actually being in the bullet points that correspond to the line, and they're not going to seem that heavy at all. But I'll build the Golden Gate Bridge to go around like a crack this big if it means like I have to actually do that and actually commit to being specific with the feeling I'm feeling.
How do you what's the question? What's the only songwriting question you ever get? What comes first, melody or lyrics? Like, did you ever notice that in interviews, the only question they ever give you is like, what comes first, melody or lyrics? And you're just like,
yeah, that's definitely one of them.
But what comes first? What comes first for you?
Oh, like actual words come last. That's for sure. But I don't work on music unless I have a good idea of what phrasing and what melody are gonna are a rough idea of phrasing and melody. Maybe not enough actual words in the scat to really discern what it is what's there. But like, I can't just strum a G chord and think that's cool. You know, like. Unless there's melody and phrasing that come with an idea, like it doesn't go anywhere.
For me, it's also song specific, because when I first started, I don't play an instrument, so I would always just get chords, and then I'd have to write a melody on top of that, and then kind of fit lyrics to that. And then when we made the second format album, I started realizing, oh shit, I hear like songs in my head, so I might as well just like go with those, and then I can show Sam the chords behind that, and we can kind of work like that. And then that's pretty much how I've done it the rest of the time. And then, you know, like a handful of times, someone else has had like a bed of chords and I've sang on top of it. But I even find myself, if I start to hear a song in my head, singing it into my phone, you know, I've got like 40 to 50% of the words already right there. And somehow, and I don't know what is manifesting, but they're like relevant words to whatever the song ends up being. Is that something that you do too?
I think your subconscious knows what you want to say. Like, and that's the whole point of the exercise of like the scat thing and discerning, like translating your subconscious scat into like actual words. Like, you know, there's something back here that has the answer of what this thing actually is, I believe, you know, and it's like,
yes, absolutely.
It's really hard.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to let yourself see that, but it's there. There's some kind of block that doesn't want me to actually see that, but I know it's there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's hard to get to. Yeah, if it was easy, then I don't know if it would be worth it.
That's true.
That was an old promise ring line.
It's yeah, Davey's a sage, man.
I mean, seriously, I'll take a drink to that. All right, is that coffee?
That's coffee. I'm thinking about calling this thing "Watch Jim Drink Coffee."
Is Lisa? Is there like a good coffee machine in the studio?
I have good beans.
Okay.
So that's.
I mean, that's half the battle, right?
It's most of the battle, I think.
Okay.
I mean, a good coffee maker. You're not gonna get far with even the best coffee maker with crappy like beans that are burnt and.
Okay. Cool.
It's like your signal is only as good as the weakest point in the chain.
Okay.
So like what ideally is a effective prompt for you? Like when you're collaborating with people, like what's the most helpful thing to push forward an idea? Like if someone's going to come to you, like what's helpful for you? Like what do you look for? What works?
I don't. It's tough nowadays. I'm just lazy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I don't. The joy isn't there. Because I've got kids. Like I've just somehow the kids thing has just like taken over for me and has just been like they're still young. So I'm still like enamored with that. But when I get serious about songwriting. Absolutely serious. I like to have a great melody, and I like to hope that there's going to be lyrics that that don't just sound like the word the, like 50 different ways to like put the word the. You want words that you can grab onto, so to speak. One thing I learned somewhere along the way was to like put the song somewhere. So even a song like "We Are Young," I kind of paint the setting of where it starts, so that you have kind of a visual of things. So if I'm writing a song for someone, I don't want to just be like, I love you, I love you, I love you, yeah, and just have that be kind of what it is. I want to make sure that there are words.
How'd that go again? I'm gonna. No.
Yeah. I love you, I love you, I love you, yeah.
That's a good one.
I love you, I love you, yeah. Yeah, and you can actually put a kind of big beat behind that too. But but I would hope that if you stole that, you would. Oh, but by the way, we're collaborating right now, so there's no stealing. I would hope that if you went with that melody, that you would find a couple of other words in there, like things that might reference something. One of my favorite bands. Do you remember the Weaker Thens?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So one of my favorite lyricists is John K. Samson, and he was never short of describing objects in songs, and objects just had so much emotion. Like any object, a coffee mug, had so much emotional weight to it. And so as a lyricist, like I want to make sure that I get that coffee mug in there. That is like so absurdly important. Pop songs nowadays, you really don't. You just get the word the and like love, and you just get like 40 different versions of the word the and 40 different versions of the word love, and like that's it.
I think like the way that I'm into picking up what you're laying down is the like a sense of specificity, a sense of
absolutely
easy for me to say, like what are the concrete elements of this? I find myself like going back and editing a lot of what I do because it's just too rooted in like an abstract. It's like it's an abstract, a philosophical, an emotional. What's real about it? You know, like what's an anchor to a real physical world? Like you're saying, like when you get specific with a scene, you put it somewhere, like you said. That's a good way to.
I'll still take. Where am I going with this? Am I just throwing out a whole bunch of like random words? I'll still take that over like just like non-specific lyrics. Those worked in the kind of classic ditties, but even not so. Like even a song like "My Boyfriend's Back," like sounds pretty specific to me. Like it sounds like it puts you in an exact place. You hear "My boyfriend's back and you're gonna be in trouble." Like you know exactly where you are if you were to relate that song to yourself. Nowadays, I just don't hear that. I just hear a non-specific place, and I'm just like, I don't want to hang out there. But let's use Static Prevails as an example.
Okay.
Huge influence on me as a kid, growing up and just being obsessed with music. And honestly, unbelievable lyrics. I don't know what the fuck one thing's about, but you know what they were? They were absolutely about everything I was going through at that time. That was like what kind of always drew me to Wilco too, is there were a few Wilco records where just the words were just nonsensical. And every now and then you just get one word. They'd throw you like one bone of like, talking about a muzzle of bees and all this type of stuff. And then randomly just being like, I'm assuming you got my message on your machine. I'm assuming you love me and you know what that means. And then suddenly the whole song makes sense. And Static Prevails is such an amazing, just such a great example of that. You're just getting a whole bunch of like something, and then occasionally you're just let into the level of pain or even a slightly non-specific reason, and you can internalize it just phenomenally. And so I love that. I love having lyrics like that. I'll take stuff that doesn't make, any sense any day over, just like non-specific shit.
Like, muzzle of bees. It's sort of a hook right there. You know what I mean? It's sort of disarming because like, what is that? But like, my boyfriend's back. That instantly like corners you into something very specific. Muzzle of bees is like, well, where is he going with this? What's the allegory behind the choice for that? Or like, is this literally about a swarm of bees? He had to jump into a pool. Like what's like
yeah, but where are you going on Static Prevails? Why? Well, first of all, you wrote the lyrics. Is it nonsensical or not?
No, it's not nonsensical. It's just like,
Are we? But is a random listener privy to the inside information?
No, probably not.
Exactly, and it's fucking and it's amazing because that's one of the things that it makes it all the more endearing. Is that we're not necessarily into it yet. We're supposed to feel it in our own we're supposed to feel it in our own way. I can, I all my friends, we grew up, we listened to that album, and it was like, this is absolutely heartbreaking. I don't know what it's about. How special is that? That's a pretty special place to be. I've never been fearless enough. I always have to let everybody in, because I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable, and I think, like I said, I think that's fine. I think as long as you give some specifics, you paint a picture and so on and so forth. I think that's pretty amazing. But I do believe that there is a place for those albums that don't make sense and still find a way to break your heart.
Well, that's nice of you to say, Nate. Thank you. I mean, but like, 18-year-old, 19-year-old me, I think I was just like, I was trying to frame the confusion and wonder and process what was happening in my life at the time, which is basically just being an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid and everything that comes into it. I was like, okay, I was taking very specific things, so specific that they would never translate into anything else, but they are anchored to a specific emotion for me, and throwing that up against things that are descriptive of real things, but again, not a universal thing. I don't know. I was still fishing around for my process and my method, and you know, it really was kind of an easier stream of consciousness sort of thing back then. There's not that self-censor hadn't really developed that yet at that point.
Yeah, but the trajectory was actually really cool because you got that. You kind of got with clarity, you know, the words became a little more clear. Suddenly Bleed American, now you're starting to write from kind of more so where I'm writing from, which is descriptive, but descriptive, but you're kind of letting everybody in a little bit more. You're letting everybody into your emotional world.
When you say letting everybody in, do you mean like less vague?
You know, vague. It's the same thing as like a John K. Sampson lyric. There's nothing vague about finding objects and putting them in a song and them having like some sort of meaning to you, you know, even if they don't have the same meaning to me. I hear it and I can almost, you know, I guess I can feel why that object might be of value, but it's not, it's still a little too vague. But I think by the time you guys got to Bleed American, you're letting everybody in, feeling, let's say 75% of the lyrics per song. People could absolutely know what you're talking about, especially if they like sat there with the lyrics in front of them, you know, and wanted to study it. They would know what it was. And then I think Damages was also just like a real sweet spot too, in maybe being, I mean, those are just so well constructed and emotional, and there's not a lot of searching that you have to do. Maybe like let's take Damages and let's take Static Prevails and let's like pit them against each other and assume that everything that you did in between that was a progression to get, you know, you start with Static Prevails and your progression to get to Damages. It's like it's not as nondescript as Static Prevails, but the lyrics can still be amazing, and you can let people in a little bit more on the emotional stuff. And that's something that I just like to do because I'm too scared of someone not wanting to hear a song because they hear me talk about too many vague things that make no sense.
Feeling like you're making a connection with somebody, part of the musical reward. Then, like when you're listening back to something that you've worked on and you feel like, okay, I'm done. This is cool. Like, or at least I don't hate it enough to where I'm going to hide it. It's good. It's good enough. I'll show it to everybody. Like, is that part of the reward there? That like, I feel like you feel like you've saying something that satisfies what you wanted to say with it, you thinking it's going to be accessible but not insulting, you know, not so accessible that it's insulting, but
no, totally. Yeah, no, I'd still rather be Jeff Tweedy, you know, than I never had the guts to do that. To like take it that far. I'd always just you know, the level of self-consciousness that happens in my lyrics and just as an individual anyways is just being hyper aware of everything at all times. So for me, I always felt like lyrics is like how far can I try and be Jeff Tweedy? You know, that was always kind of like the big thing for me is how much can I try and be Jeff Tweedy and take away from this need to please the listener by over describing everything, you know, but I always felt like I would lose the listener if I would just saying, you know, something absurdly vague.
I guess I
like just give me a reason like that I wrote half the lyrics to that song, but I only wrote half of them because it was the stuff off the top of my head. Pink had written the rest of it. And people will come up to me every single day and be like, oh my gosh, like the lyrics of that song, I'm able to relate it to my relationship to this and this and this. And for me, I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. It sounds like a love song, you know? And like that, I always just kind of and that's honestly not a slight to Pink in the latest or in the least. I think that I think she's amazing. And like I said, there's a place for those lyrics and people who write those lyrics, you know, because also people work hard. Most people work really fucking hard, and they deserve to not have to sit there and try and decipher every single lyric and what that means. And Alicia does a great job of making lyrics that people can understand and feel, but not be so incredibly basic. That's something that I've always kind of admired about her. I'll tell you, whatever she's saying is 100 times better than what most people are saying, which is just like they're essentially just not even using words. I've sat in sessions with people and they don't even like use lyrics. They're like, it'd be like this, the sun is out, like, and then they just find a way to put like the word the, like it just feels like you're just drinking a glass of water, and there's just nothing to it. And she could always, like, she made that song to where it wasn't like that. But for me specifically, like, I want so much more by not really understanding what the fuck it's about.
There needs to be a little bit of place where the listener is going to fill in their own associations. And if you're too like specific with right now, you're limiting the longevity of it. You know, like if you're singing about like TikTok right now, you know, or you're singing about what's trending right now, like literally hashtag what's trending, like maybe that works for like 5 minutes, but it is kind of cringy.
Yeah, it's like super cringy. There's some times where I like to use it. Like I used the word Twitter in a song once, and everybody's like, "Why are you doing that?" But I understood that it was going to be something of relevance. It's like if you listen back to a Beach Boys song and they're mentioning like a Cadillac of the time. You listen back to it and you're like, "That's a nostalgic." You see an old car and stuff like that. At the time, like that was like if I sang about a Bugatti,
right?
You know, and so you have to kind of think about those things. It's about how you use them. But a song like I'd say a song like the Book of Love on Damages, like that's a song that sounds so specific to you, but I had been in a couple of relationships since that song, and I've used it when I've gone for a run or I've done something like that, and I've used it to internalize myself or whatever relationship like type of stuff I've gone through. And I think that is like a pretty special thing when that's when you're really hitting, and that's a tough place to get as a lyricist is to get into
right
that zone.
I think for me the reward is like I can't think about how it's going to be interpreted. I can't. You know, if I'm imagining some fictitious listener and what they might think of it, then I'm kind of betraying something. I'm kind of like, and I'm going to start editing myself in a way it's not digging within. It's like putting on a character in a way, you know?
Yeah, I think that way for the most part. But there's a part of me that at the end of the day, I can't not commit myself to write lyrics like on Static Prevails, even as badly as I want to, because I'm scared that no one's going to understand it.
Man, I think you do a little bit of a better job than what's on Static Prevails.
If you want to do a whole other side episode, if you want to do me interviewing you for Static Prevails,
a deep dive into the lyrics of Static Prevails.
Oh my God, that would be be a great. I will
tell you something about Static Prevails. It's like my method back then was basically like we would jam in a room for the music. We would write the music that way. Be like, I got a part. Oh, cool, man. Let's do this this part. Okay, what could go after that? Oh, what about this? Cool. All right, then what's it gonna do? Well, what if it got quieter? Okay, great. Hey, do that drum thing again. All right, great. That's the song. I got the boombox cassette, and I'm gonna hit record. Okay, let's try it. And then I would take that and I would go sit in my room and listen to my cassette of the rehearsal space, and I would just write stuff. It would kind of happen, and the first thing I came up with is what really stayed. I couldn't do that now. I could not do that now. I could not repeat that now for anything.
I know, and I feel the same way sometimes. Like, for me as a songwriter, and I'm not like, I have no reason to big up myself. I can literally just be like, yeah. After I made my solo record, which I felt like I devoted all of my emotional weight to, I happen to have like gotten into a good situation. I have someone that I love more than anything, and I have kids that I love more than anything, and those were always the only things that ever really drew me to like writing the songs that I wrote, was that I felt like an outsider who didn't belong, who was constantly in love. And I'm not that anymore at all. I'd be fooling myself and I'd be fooling my listeners into thinking that too. So it's very hard for me to write songs nowadays, because those are the things that I truly care about. Now, nowadays it's 100 times more. Every single song I write is a country song about killing yourself, or like is a political, like a pro-socialist country song. That's like the only shit I write, or like that's it.
There's a big market for the pro-socialist country music out there.
I mean, I don't want that market to exist. I don't believe in a market. I don't believe in a free market. But so for me, like there's those songs like belong to me now, and I just can't find that person that I think made whoever I was as a songwriter so important.
I go back to, I feel that same way. It's harder now because I have a better sense of who I am. So it's like everything I'm writing has to go through the filter of like, is this me or is this pushing me? Like, is this growth, or have I done this already? So there's that level of judgment. Then there's like the, is this really starting to say what I want to say? Never thought about that before. And then there's just the whole general sense of like, this isn't that person that just did this and it was easy. So therefore maybe it's not as good. Like, why do you have to be that kid that just spit it out? Like, I think you're being really hard on yourself. I'm hard on myself. No,
but that's the only way I want to work. I listen, I can write a melody. My melodies are probably stronger than ever, but I believe in lyrics that much, and the strength of lyrics that much, that that when the lyrics hit like so much, like that's when I'm involved in all of the music. Like that's the thing is, I even though I don't play an instrument, I hear every single thing in my head, and I drive people crazy. I'm not in bands because I'm a psychopath. I'm a guy who doesn't play an instrument, writes all the songs, like basically tries to write all the parts, and then drive everybody else crazy along the way. Trying to like get out what's in my head and trying to explain to everybody what's in my head. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, I don't want to drive any more people crazy. And then there's another part of me that's like, I don't have the energy to drive people crazy anymore. And so like, if I'm writing like songs for other people, it's fine, because usually there's more production involved and it's more current, so to speak. Like it's going to be more for like a hit song, like where it's not like that. So usually
the blank page isn't your responsibility. You're contributing, kind of like.
Well, no, but I think people are still being like, hey, sing, like come up with an entire melody that then suddenly there are chords behind it and stuff like I could write a song right now, and you could just put chords behind it, and like that's a lot of what I've done, is just like come up with chords or come up with songs, and I know the chords. Like you could play the wrong chord and I'd be like, no, you need to go, I might go like play something sunnier, play something darker, which might mean like a minor chord. And then, sometimes I might even know, I'm like, no, I think it's a minor right there, but I don't fucking know. I literally have no idea about any of this shit. The only thing that I do is I go I get creative and I go off on a tangent. And it just, I'm a whirling dervish, and like, I want to get everybody's attention, and I get very excited about it and stuff like that. That's not so much like what I do anymore. Like now I'll just like sit in the shower and maybe like write like a big hook or something like that. And I'll be like, okay, cool. I'm going to go in the studio with this person or that person. And I'm about to do something. We're talking about doing something with someone that I'm like obsessed with, a musician that I'm obsessed with. So that will probably change like everything as soon as, if I do that album, which I'm supposed to do, then like that I plan on. I'm excited because finally I get to like go back to being like energized about everything other than like trying to write a big hook.
You're setting an expectation for yourself before you even start. You know, like you're not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know. I do that too.
It's like it's the trickiest thing. It keeps me from a lot of progress. It's like I always forget. I know, but I always like forget. I can't let myself believe that like there is always something you can do that matches your level of willingness. And I think to get to the completion of something, you have to let that small victory of rising to that level of willingness be enough. So that the next thing that comes your way, you have like that momentum to take on that level of willingness. Because I think we both have had like success in the sense of like creating something that we were proud of and we felt really, special to us, as well as like other people kind of agreeing with us. And, that's not really that's the wrong target to shoot for. You know what I mean? It's really just about like this line, like, is that cool? That's cool. Cool. And like letting that be enough. Letting that be enough.
Yeah. No, for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. When Sam and I first made the first Format album, we didn't know what we were doing. We like basically knew nothing, and we had everything handed to us. And we finished it. And I remember us sitting there in a hotel room because we'd already started going on tour, and we listened to the masters played back, and we both said, "This sucks." And I said to myself, "Well, shit. So I guess we're not the Beatles." and it was a sobering moment in songwriting for me. Okay, so we're not the Beatles. We're never going to have that moment that the Beatles had where they were just like the biggest thing in the world, and then they went off and they became cool as hell somehow in the process. For whatever reason, that really just drove me to want to try and make every song the most like that. So the album that followed that up, Dog Problems, like that was a conceptual album. It was highly conceptual. It was the first time that I'd started writing songs without having a bed of chords behind me and hearing things in my head. So the tempos were like jumping all over the place, and it was like a little more mathy and it, lyrics like a novel and so on and so forth, because I was trying to I love that album. Love it. It's my second favorite thing that I've ever made. But that was definitely me trying to be like overcompensate as a songwriter and be like, no, I am good. I'm good. Check it out. Look at me. I can do this and this and this. And I did that subsequently on the next Fun album, which I don't like at all. And then the big Fun album was when Jeff Basker, the producer, and I really wanted to work with a hip hop producer, hoping that someone would finally like simplify my brain and stop me from doing all this crazy shit. And that was the good news, is I'd met Jeff, and he was the first person to be like, when he and I sat and did We Are Young together, before anybody else had heard it. And I remember going to him and being like, "Oh, well, Jeff, the verse is actually way faster than the chorus, and the chorus slows down." And he's working in this Kanye West world, and he's like, I'm sorry, what? We're doing a tempo map? Like, what the fuck does that mean? And I like explained it. I explained it to him, and I explained how the pre-chorus was a way to kind of like slow it back down for like the slingshot into the chorus. And he was like, this is brilliant. This is amazing. And what was funny is right after that, like as soon as then he did the album, he was like, hey, Nate, now I'm just going to program a beat and like, you're going to sing to it, you know? And like, that was my intro into simplicity. It wasn't and not even that album. It's in my top 3, but it's not my favorite. My favorite probably was the solo album that I did. And that was kind of just marrying all of those things, like the simplicity of working with Jeff and the complexity of that second format album of like having a deep thought and not being like, I think when we made the last Fun album, the one that had done so well, I maybe went a little too overboard of coming up with a universal thought that everybody could hear. And so with my solo album and knowing that was going to be the last album that I was ever going to do, I was kind of just like, no, I'll start to go back to that, like a little bit of mathiness and feeling like just like who I am, which is someone who doesn't fit in anywhere.
No matter how cool or successful you think somebody is, everyone's just like the outcast kid that didn't feel like they fit in anywhere until they discovered like the aha magic of I made a song.
I spent way too much time trying to flex and intellectually flex or indie flex or, you know, like do all those type of things.
Indie flex.
You just try and be like cooler than you are. I would always, maybe it's my own insecurities projected onto like cool bands that like Pitchfork would think were cool and stuff like that. And I'd be like, oh man, those guys carry themselves like way too cool. And for the most part, I don't think that that's the case. That's the thing is that musicians, most of us are just the most insecure people of all time. And if we could all just like look at each other and look at everybody else and be like, yeah, and we are, and occasionally we know how to write a song. Like that would be, things would be so much cooler.
It's gonna be okay.
But
everybody's okay. Come on, bring it in. Yeah. It's gonna be okay.
I got a few lucky breaks. I'm not any more talented than anybody else. I have my way of doing things. And I'm very lucky that there are people who want to hear my take on that, want to hear me write a melody, sing a hook or a chorus on a mainstream level. And, on another level, I'm just lucky that I caught a couple of good breaks and I'm where I'm at. And I think that's like, honestly, that's like most musicians. And the only thing that I hope is that people work harder, just care about it.
It always is the biggest compliment, I think, when someone bothers to take the time to build like their own associations with something that you've done. Because that, it's not up to me if they do, but they've chosen that and they made it theirs, and that feels really good. It's not why we do any of this, but when that happens, it's like it's like a real connection, and it feels good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. You guys have done. You guys have meant so much to just like so many people that I've met on the way. To have that kind of contribution is such a special thing. It's amazing to write songs that you wrote songs and you and I both have voices that are kind of distinct, a little higher and stuff like that. I was lucky that Jimmy World was happening when I was writing music, for sure. Because I don't think there would be a market for my voice if it wasn't for your voice. Oh, whatever, man. I
think you would do just fine with your voice.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But also I think like, you never know how you just doing your thing might affect somebody, and how showing up in whatever capacity you have is going to maybe help somebody. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there with like, who how you describe listening to Static Prevails, like they feel that for format stuff. They feel that with your solo record. They feel that with fun. You know, I'm sure that's out there. I hate to break it to you, but that's out like, there. There's those people.
Are you cynical and were you cynical and just like, yeah, man, if you only knew how little I was doing at the time?
No, I mean, like, well, it just never crossed my mind. You know, like there was like maybe 500 people who knew who we were in the world when we made Static Prevails. So like the idea of like making an impact on other people with your music. The biggest thrill was like if 4 people showed up to our gigs back then, you know, it's like.
No, I totally know. I mean, Jim, I went to a gig at Tempe Bowl where there were, you know, 20 of us. But I was there at every single show. I wasn't as early as some of our friends. You know, some of our friends were like, some of the friends that we share were there like from the very beginning.
Yeah.
You know, so they have much crazier bragging rights. I wasn't even, I wasn't there until before Clarity. But I knew every band at the time, everybody, and it was everybody in that scene. It was just like Jimmy World. Like it's still, I still to this day, like can't believe. I'm like, yeah, I know Jim.
Oh man. Well, you know, Nate, I thank you so much for hanging out with me and chatting about songs and writing and music. I know like this isn't your normal bag, so I appreciate it. And I think it was really interesting. You know, your perspective is it's yours, and it's awesome. And you know, it's really nice talking to you.
Thank you, Jim. You the man.
Nate's one of those guys that's like, you know, he's one of those friends that you don't see often, but when you do, it's like no time has elapsed. I hope the super secret project Nate mentioned happens. And I hope he doesn't retire. When I came and played with them at the Mayan Theater for their format video that they made, it was obvious that Nate had like, you know, he was kind of micromanaging every aspect of it down to like what people were wearing. You know, he just had that much care about what he wanted the thing to look like. And it was obviously taxing. And I remember after the gig downstairs in the dressing rooms, I was talking to him about it and he was telling me how exhausted he felt. And I said, well, tomorrow you're going to want to do this all again. That's just sort of what happens. You know, you spend all this time like putting something crazy together that just takes all of your effort and it's exhausting. And then when it's over, like you take a minute, you take a breath, and then you start planning the next crazy overextending yourself project. That's just how this works. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay sane, and I will see you again soon. I might not actually see you again, but you'll probably see this again if you want. I'm going to be hiding. I'm just going to be hanging out in my bat cave.